You damn straight.
All right, we're live.
So, well, I'm gonna keep saying what I was saying, even though we're live right now. We can introduce ourselves in a minute. Freaking. So Brian, his transmission goes out, and of course, because where we live, transmissions is one of the biggest problems. That's part of why I can't drive an F-150, because the engine has enough power a lot of times, but the transmission ain't holding on that. And so he gets, and we looked this up, and according to all the advertisements and all the things on the internet, it says that this monster transmission is the heavy dutyest transmission on the American market, blah blah. And then you come to find out it's backed by Gas Monkey Garage and all this. And so of course, so Brian orders that bugger and orders it with this oversized torque converter. So this thing's just supposed to be badass. Well, they're all super friendly with in the sales department. Well, as soon as that gets paid for and done, that's the end of them talking to him. They sent him the wrong torque converter, was the first problem. And because there's two 7.3 liter diesels that Ford makes, they used to run an international engine. So it's a 7.3 IDI.
Yep.
And the IDI is 4-bolt, and then the newer one, the 7.3 Power Stroke, that has a 6-bolt on the torque converter. So they sent the torque converter for the Power Stroke, and he's got the IDI. And you can't just swap the flywheel on those. They aren't balanced the same. So he can't use it. Well, no big deal. Just send him the right one. They won't get back to him, won't call him, go through a process trying to do it, trying to get a hold of them. And come to find out, they had like almost 150 reports. And this is when we looked at it against them from the Better Business Bureau. Like, apparently this is what they've been doing this for like the last year, is just ripping people off. And the transmission came, there was a bolt missing out of the pan on the bottom. He orders a new torque converter and all this, and because can't get a hold of them, and he needs to get his truck going. And the transmission, we're not sure that the transmission's great. And it's supposed to be basically brand new, and we don't think it's great. It overheated on the way up the mountain with nothing in the truck, just warming it up, and it overheated it. Like, so now we gotta go get the transmission checked out, and they won't even return a call, no nothing. Like, they won't return emails. Like, they just. And we saw some messages. One of them, the worst one I saw on the Better Business Bureau website, said he got sent the wrong transmission. So he's like, well, hey, this isn't the right one. This isn't mine. Send me the right one. They won't get back to that dude either. He's got a whole ass transmission that's not even the right transmission. Like, wow. And to try and sue these people, you got to go to Florida to try and do it. It's just the whole thing ends up being ridiculous. But welcome to Deliberating Dog-Faced Dudes. Pink hand wave.
I'm just looking at the origins of the word transmit and transmission, and their derivatives can be traced to the Latin transmittere, in turn formed by prefixing the preposition trans, across or beyond, to the verb mittere, to let go or descend. Yeah.
What's up, Brian? Yeah, Monster Transmissions is the name of the company. Do not do business with them in any way, shape, or form.
So are we going to debate whether or not we should put our sons on birth control? Is that the topic for the dinner table discussion?
I don't know how. I don't know. Thursday? We would have to search.
You mean like feed them a steady diet of microplastics?
Yeah. We would have to search pretty hard, I think, to find somebody that's pro birth control at this point. It's pretty well known the negative effects of it, I think, at this point.
Especially pro male birth control.
Yeah.
Isn't that what you were?
Right. There was jokes around high school time where girls would say, if boys would remember to take their birth control pills, it'd be more fair that way if both genders had to take birth control.
Well, I'm obviously fully for it being fair and nobody having birth control pills. I'm fully for this. I don't think anybody should take these. Yeah.
I mean, there's that.
So-
I grew up around a whole bunch of church girls that had like the purity rings,
Mm-hmm.
and they were like, "So we only take it in the booty because God doesn't see that sex. God only sees it if you hit it in the puss." Like, that was, I'm serious. That was a thing.
That's
forms of birth control.
that's I think probably better than the Mormon one where you could put it in but not move and you just soak.
The soaking, yeah.
But
then you get a buddy that like shakes the bed.
Yeah.
We did
And
have
you could not shake the bed enough when you're a teenager. Like you're a teenager, you're like a dog in heat, man. You're like ready to freaking nail a bedpost at like 320 freaking strokes per minute, just like
yeah. Shout out to Tim Timony 7641 who left a abundance of comments and was scoring the debate and time stamping everything. We love that.
Some of them were hilarious.
Appreciate it.
Much appreciated. That's the kind of behavior we want to reward.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Do we have some dog treats we can send out? Some delicious snacks.
Remember that? You remember that Bloodhound Gang song? The Robin Banks all hopped up on Scooby snacks. We don't want that to happen if we send out that snacks.
Oh man, now I gotta hear it.
But because of that, we agree, Tim Timony. We know that we are not expert debaters in any fashion, and also it's very hard to come from especially like myself or Steve, where we've given numerous talks and basically dissertations on things, to tone that down into something that's, even though it's not a soundbite, from what I've figured out, the best I've figured out, and this is, I've watched numerous actual debate people, not just like the YouTube ones, like people that do like professional debating and whatnot. And you've got in that first 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever it is, time, you've got to lay out your best points. So if you have, say, 10 good points on a subject, if you can only eloquently and reasonably make somebody that doesn't really know what you're talking about understand it, you've got to narrow that down to 2 points or 3 points. And then understand that during your next time, you're going to have to bounce back the things that he said to contradict, and then plus whatever contradictions yourself that you need to give on their things. So now you've truncated down where you've only got really less than 10 minutes to explain your position in a reasonable, factual way that can now be torn apart and defended for the rest of the debate, is what's going to happen. So understanding that is the first key. So going in with the max information is actually not really that beneficial. You've got to truncate it down. And I think, and again, that's a problem both Steve and I have, because we're used to having 2 hours or more, even in some occasions, to air out a thought. And then we're used to working with an audience that has a lot of times come along with what we've been saying. So you get used to these different things that you say, and they mean something to the people you've been speaking to, but to a new audience, they don't mean jack shit.
The shorthand, the lingo, the language, the Zoomerisms, the age gap discourse. We get a lot about the age gap discourse.
And that one's not helping either.
To be old guys screaming at clouds, hoping young people listen and understand what we're saying. It's difficult in a debate to tell someone, you weren't alive for the Vietnam War, so why are you having an opinion that you are treating as fact about an event that you weren't alive for?
You don't have a uterus. Why do you have an opinion on women's issues?
Which I do, I do like Andrew's response to that, which was, is, do I need to murder somebody to have an opinion on murder then? Like, it's a pretty perfect, succinct response.
Yeah, the quick wit to continue with the argument, to not be derailed, is an important part of the toolkit, certainly.
Yeah. And again, you got to stay amongst the prompt. So you've got to pick your spot and just keep nailing that one spot. So that's a big deal. And then you've got to take out all your presuppositions. And that was like last week, in my opinion, for Steve. Steve's biggest problem is presuppositions and then gish galloping.
Oh, for sure. Sorry, I just got handed a plate of food. So
that's no problem, brother.
It's not a problem to be incredibly entertaining and to kind of play a villainous role. People always talk about the devil's advocate. And I think the most successful debates are the debates that are most shared and watched and remembered, which are often the most entertaining debates. And I don't think there is a perfect debate. If I were to perform a flawless victory,
nobody said anything about his entertainment factor nor his fire. I believe that was it was probably our most popular debate as far as actual debates go.
Mm-hmm.
The fire was much appreciated, but at the same time, we want to do well. We want to, and it's not that this is a breaking of the rules, but like where a gish gallop, like for people that don't know what that is, that's where you lay out too much information so the person can't respond to individual points. Well, as a speaker, the more information you can lay out, that will back up what you've said. When you have 2 hours, that's wonderful. In a debate, that's a gish gallop. You have just said like 23 things, and I need to kind of step back and now question each one of those individual things because there's not an innate sense of why that ties to what you just said.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and like you were saying, man, I mean, I do a 3-hour show 4 days a week and sit in on a 3-hour show at least one other day a week. And we were talking about this morning. Wayne McCroy was on this morning.
Oh, nice.
And we were talking about this. We're like, we'll go off on not necessarily the tangent train, but this connects to this, connects to this, connects to this. And you'll always get back around to the original point. But sometimes because it is an in-depth subject, you go several different places before you get back to the original root of it.
It's a non-linear sort of discussion where you can go from point to point and explore the points. In our debate, though, especially if you're going against someone, you have to lead them point by point by point. And it has to be a logical A to B to C to D to 3 to, and mixing metaphors. That was a funny thing too, was the mixing of metaphors. Metaphors, analogies, sort of word games, these types of things, that is going to stop you dead in your tracks, and you're going to get slapped on the wrist if that continues. People don't want to hear sermons. They don't want to hear rhetoric. They don't want to hear emotional pleas. But those are my favorite. So I know that I need to be careful and not get stuck in the Gish Gallop pond of sadness and making you feel real emotional about.
Well, what you're going to get dinged on when you start debating some other actual people is you don't answer questions, and you might get some people lost in your mulberry bush, but the while you're going around it, there's going to be, I think, enough sharp people that are going to be like, dude, you don't answer anything.
So is it a yes or no question? Is that the debate tactic to ask your opponent yes or no questions?
Melanie, if Melanie ever took lessons from you, Melanie could be dangerous.
Dangerous debaters.
Like your ability to not answer a question, spot the fuck on.
Well, and purposely not understanding the question, and then purposely misrepresenting your own answer. That's kind of it's a comic style. It's not a debate style.
Right.
So it can be humorous and funny as a way to deflect, to buy you more time before you get to the answer. But if every answer is just like, I'm rubber, you're glue, whatever, you say bounces off of me, sticks to you, this type of thing. It's like the playground debates of, Walmart or Target. What's going to sell a better Nintendo 64 game? Target or Walmart? Well, they both sell the same product, but what is the debate about? It's like, you feel better because you shop in the rich neighborhood and you go to the Target, or do you go to the poor side of town and buy the same item from Walmart? Do you get to the same destination? You have a goal in mind. You want a product. Where do you buy it? Does that matter? This type of thing. But that really gets into the customer service.
Walmart's going to be the expensive, fancy one because it's imported.
Could be. The experience of shopping, and I just want to share a personal anecdote from today. I was in a dollar store, and for whatever reason... Okay, first of all, dollar stores, everything is $1.25. An anecdote. It's a story. An anecdote, a story from my life today, in which the debate of whether it's worth spending $1.25 on a soap item, or waiting in line for half an hour because people were treating the dollar store as if it was their supermarket sweep, and they were just throwing everything into their cart and having just a shopping spree at a dollar store where everything is $1.25. So the time it takes for them to scan 20-30 items in a woman's cart with 6 people in line, you add it up and you realize, you know what, if I'm going to stand in line for 20 minutes to pay for something that's $1.25, and now the debate running through the head is, do you just walk out of the store with the thing in your pocket because it's only $1.25? What do you do? Or do you just drive across town and spend twice the amount, but then time and effort? So people are using the word debate in terms of, I'm debating whether or not I should do my finances in this way or another way. It's like, well, who are you debating? Are you debating yourself?
This is what the tariffs are going to answer. It's going to take that crazy, it was made by a small child factor for 25 cents an hour or 10 cents a day or whatever they're paying these poor kids. It's going to take that factor out of it because now they have to, where we have to pay American workers a living wage. Well, that tariff's going to make up that difference. And if you're jackass enough to still buy the stuff that's made by child labor, even after it's pretty close to the same price, then I don't know what to say to you. I don't know.
Well, in using the word debate in terms of something that is math, which has a factual correct answer, I don't know if that can be debated. I have a list of 10 statements that were presented to people to determine whether they could determine if the statement was a fact statement or an opinion statement. Would you like to go through some of those before we have our Thanksgiving turkey?
No.
You want them after the turkey?
I don't eat turkey.
One of the questions not on the questionnaire form, this is like a survey poll thing that they're trying to figure out the success rate at fact opinion differentiation. Well, it's shockingly low. One of the questions was Barack Obama a U.S. citizen or something? So President Barack Obama was born in the United States. Is that a statement of fact or is that a statement of opinion?
But are you asking me and Ben?
Yeah. You can ponder that one. Barack Obama.
Re-release the birth certificate.
Right. So,
I think I'm pretty sure he was born in Hawaii, but there's a whole lot going on, Frank Marshall Davis, that leads me to believe that he's definitely more American than people realize.
So grammatically, that statement would read as a statement of fact, but now it can be also classified as a statement of opinion, depending on whether you can verify a birth certificate or not.
Did they really give that kind of a politically charged question on that?
Yeah, you should see the other.
So what is this? Just meant to sniff out if you are into Republican conspiracy theories or what?
Well, part of this was to make statements regarding Americans' ability to differentiate between a fact statement and an opinion statement. But the questions they were using were pretty loaded.
I imagine a lot of the debates that I watched that were like college level debates, the way that they worded the debate prompt even already had it super loaded toward the liberal side. It was real interesting. Like one of them that stood out was, should conservative rhetoric be made illegal because it's so hateful and it caused so many problems? So like there's no like, it's presupposing already that is. So like all these kids that on the conservative side, like their argument isn't even whether the stuff that's being said is true or whether any of that kind of thing. It's a complete just a defense of a position to where it's already deemed that what they're saying is hateful and misinformation. Like this is super weird.
Well, they're asking yes or no questions, but then you'd have to put the little asterisk next to it to say, well, read the fine print to see. It's like yes or no with
you don't ever say yes or no. You just jump straight past the asterisks and then go around a mulberry bush 12 times. And then by the time you're done, you assumed whoever asked the question didn't remember the question.
That's what living in a post-truth world appears as to me.
So
there are more, and they get more confusing, I suppose. You'd think that they would be simple, statement of facts or statement of opinions, and you'd be able to identify them. But now that line is really blurred. So immigrants who are in the U.S. illegally have some rights under the Constitution. Is that a statement of fact or a statement of opinion?
What? Say it again.
Immigrants who are in the U.S. illegally have some rights under the Constitution.
I mean,
Yes,
there's an
because they still have a
asylum
right.
provision.
Just
Like
asking
you still
people
can't,
on the
you still
street.
can't. They still do have the basic human rights. They don't. You can't like abuse them and things like that.
Right.
But they don't have like the same full set of rights that a United States citizen does.
No,
So, I mean,
these
they have
unfortunate bastards just get debit cards with 10K on it and get put up in
right
4-star
now at this
hotels.
point.
Yeah.
It's the partisan polarization that they're proving here. So they're asking highly polarizing questions
Mhm.
and asking, is this a statement of fact or a statement of opinion?
Yeah.
Question 2. ISIS lost a significant portion of its territory in Iraq and Syria in 2017. ISIS lost a significant
Yes.
portion.
However, the people who were signing their paychecks, i.e., the U.S. government, has maintained a grip on the oil fields in Syria ever since.
Sure.
But yeah, no.
The word significant in that
You would have to-
statement of
So what
fact.
is this a test to see how much you watch the mainstream news?
Right, and which team of mainstream news you subscribe to, if you're Team Fox or Team MSNBC.
It's a loaded question. If they would change the statement to state that ISIS lost 50% of its territory, and then you could prove that somehow, that would be more specific than to say something general like significant portion of its territory.
I mean, they had already gotten their asses kicked over the course of a number of years, all over Syria. They'd,
Yeah, they basically had no power by that point in time, anyways.
Yeah, but I mean, but the whole argument for Trump is that he was, such an anti-war president. But if you're gonna say that, how can you also claim at the same time that Trump's military dealt the decisive blow to ISIS that lasted for almost 7 years before they regrouped just recently to start a little bit of trouble? Not a lot of bit of trouble, but a little bit of trouble.
Well, here's a different question for you. The Earth is between 5,000 and 10,000 years old. Is this a statement of fact or a statement of opinion?
The Earth is a flat disk that spins around on top of 4 elephants, who in turn stand on the world turtle, the great Atuan, as it swims through time and space.
And that is between 5 to 10,000 years old.
Oh no, it's timeless. It's the people that are 5 to 10,000 years old.
That makes sense. Okay, I'll write that down.
Yeah, that's an opinion.
They're listing that as a statement of fact.
Oh.
So
it's a Christian group asking this? Who said that that's a fact? Like what?
These are the questions they're asking. So before I explain it further, I'm just asking the questions that are on their fact opinion differentiation.
Well, yeah, I mean, according to the Jews, it's like 65 something,
Yeah,
right?
You had to be on the Abrahamic to think this.
Yeah.
Does effective partisan polarization lead to partisan bias? In fact, opinion differentiation.
Who put this poll or who put this nonsense out? Who did this?
This is published on Harvard Kennedy School's website,
Harvard
harvard.edu.
Kennedy School.
What?
Yeah.
Oh.
So this is kind of what they're working for. And before we are too quick to misunderstand what they're doing, there's a few more questions on the worksheet here.
Does it go from anti-woke to hell woke? Do they do the old
it has a
onion?
It has a question on abortion. So abortion should be legal in most cases. Is this a statement of opinion or a statement of fact?
That's opinion.
definitely a statement of opinion.
And they do list that as a statement of opinion, so we are in agreement with that point. Increasing the federal minimum wage to $15 an hour is essential for the health of the U.S. economy. Is this a statement of fact or a statement of opinion?
Opinion.
Yeah. There's lots of different ways that you can get around over and through stuff like that, and it doesn't say anything about this. Is at least what happened in California. Every time they would do one of those wage increases, the cost of absolutely everything, including the overall cost of like rent and utilities and all that stuff, went up along with it. If your supposed purpose is trying to raise people up out of poverty, but you have, and I'm not saying you should, I'm just saying if there's nothing to offset that, like rent caps or, something like that, like then it's effectively meaningless because you didn't increase anyone's buying power. In fact, on a broad scale, you lowered it by raising their wage.
Yeah, because you raised it across when all the expenses go up and your wage only went up a bit. That you blew that little bit like on rent, and now everything else is still more expensive. You got a net negative. How do you feel about the tariffs, Steve?
So here's the thing: tariffs on top of income tax are just a way to punish consumers. So if you're saying my method to solve this problem is going to be tariffs, and the first thing you do is anything other than eliminate the income tax, then all you're doing is double dipping and stealing.
Yeah.
So the threat of tariffs are different from the implementation of tariffs. If someone announces that I'm going to put tariffs on you, and then people go and hurry up and spend money on things that they think are going to increase. So like people are like, oh, buy all your computer components, buy your hard drives because tariffs, man. So
they already started raising prices. There's a lot of places that especially automobile manufacturers and stuff like that.
Dude, they're all looking for any excuse to raise their price, and then it never comes back down. Even if the event never happens, it never comes back down. These businesses are such ripoffs. But here's the fact: I'm totally pro tariff, but I agree with 100% with what Steve said about it needs to cancel out the income tax, because before income taxes, tariffs is where that money came from. And then number two, all the damage that was done through NAFTA, if you ask me, the tariffs that we put on need to be crazy high, stiff tariffs like Walmart.
Well, okay, here's the thing though, man. If you're gonna do that, you have to then incentivize American manufacturing.
Yes.
And you've got to do that in a way that revitalizes entire sectors where we'd still be reliant on a number of the countries that we just levied insane tariffs on for either the raw materials or some of the molds or the pre-built components.
Well, this would just include rolling back a lot of regulations, which I'm totally for anyways.
I mean, yes and no. I don't know. I don't necessarily want to go tear all through the American South for chasing after lithium. I don't really necessarily want to turn it into a fucking open air pit.
I'm not a big fan of lithium myself, nor that system. I'm 100% on the page that that green energy revolution was a scam.
Oh yeah.
And if we aren't investing into like things like a hydrogen engine, it's just a waste. And so that lithium, for what we're using it for anyways, in my opinion, there's just leave it there. And I understand that some of these things are going to get, we need them, and we do need some of the things that are incoming. And that's going to make those particular things more expensive. I get it. What I also understand is if it's so expensive that it incentivizes companies to come back that left because of the NAFTA opening up the borders, and putting no protections on our American workers whatsoever, just like parole laid out was going to happen. Those companies come back. That's American workers doing skilled work at American worker prices, and they can afford those goods. The people now cannot, because there's no American skilled workers doing American skilled work.
No, I mean, I remember I grew up in a GM town. You know, I know exactly what it was like before NAFTA and exactly what it was like both immediately after and then now, shit, 30 years and 6 months, you know, and I grew up with a bunch. I was just talking to Tripoli about this. Grew up with a bunch of people whose dads all worked for GM, and their moms either had some dumbass part-time job or they didn't have a job, and they had, you know, at least 2 or 3 kids. All the kids got cars, and there was a project car, and they had a lake house, or they had some, you know, stupid timeshare thing down in Florida, and, you know, vacation here, vacation there, that kind of shit. And then NAFTA hit, and now there's like a racetrack and a Nestle plant and meth labs and like freaking strip mall churches. You're muted, Ben.
We're just taking a moment of silence for
Right,
those
you're still
communities.
muted, Ben. Still muted.
I was lucky and hit adulthood pre-NAFTA and got to enjoy those last years of pre-NAFTA and the first years of NAFTA, where it hadn't completely destroyed our economy and our workforce and made everybody into angry versions of India on the phone and doing nothing but customer service. I worked at Interstate Detroit Diesel when I started working there when I was 19. I owned a house by the time I was 21 in Bloomington, which was a nice suburb outside of Minneapolis. It wasn't Edina, you know, the ritzy suburb, but Bloomington was nice.
We can look at house prices on Zillow, comparing Edina and other urban areas.
My first house was 7908 4th Avenue South.
Some of those house prices have literally doubled in 10 years' time. Like, go back 10 years ago on price records on Zillow.
Yeah.
With the price of the property,
Some of them have plummeted too, man.
Where have they plummeted?
Or at least over well, I guess 5 years ago, something like that. Yeah, no, maybe 10 years ago. Maybe you're right. I'm trying to remember when my mom sold her
houses
house
around Detroit and houses around where that Hurricane Katrina hit down south. You know, houses in Ashland or Asheville. Now it's all underwater.
Mm-hmm.
Says that house is about 300,000 now. I got out before the top of the 08 bubble, so it was about 2 when I got out from under it. But yeah, then NAFTA ruined everything for everybody. It's never been the same since. So it was amazing watching the Democrats do their whole thing where they tried claiming that Republicans were always enjoying the changes that they made to the economy. I'm like, how are you going to let them get away with NAFTA? And they're trying to push the TPP still. And that is like NAFTA's bigger brother that took steroids and is way more retarded.
Yeah. So what happened was, I remember, because Trump ran on, killing the TPP, and he effectively kind of did, because it had been exposed and people found out what it was and what was in it. And so what he did is he turned it into an agreement with the North American Union, right? Mexico and Canada. And then they reaffirmed the whole CAFTA thing, right? The Central American Free Trade Agreement. And then they did like a PAC-C thing, which was basically everything that was in the TPP, except for they'd already figured out through the Chevron case with Steven Donziger, the lawyer that sued on behalf of some like Ecuadorian tribes, sued Chevron. They figured out that if they just took former legal team members from corporate and then put them into judgeships, they were going to get their corporate courts anyway. And that was one of the things that people had a huge problem with, rightfully so, with the TPP, was the corporate court that was ultimately going to determine the outcome over any individual recognition of state sovereignty, let alone individual sovereignty.
That shit was nuts. And it just straight a medical giveaway. Just straight up a medical giveaway.
Mm-hmm.
Just insane. But did you guys both see my debate with Easy?
No.
You want to pull that up then, Marcus? And
see if we can find
that. We can let the bashing begin.
Do you remember the number of that?
It wasn't a Friday thing. It was a Thursday thing. It was hops, something about panel hops.
Okay.
Yeah.
I know he's celebrating 1 million views, and he was streaming for 1 million hours.
Yeah, that was nuts.
Let's see.
Let's see here.
Should we allow women in all men's spaces? Debate topic. Is that before the hops was 2 weeks ago? Let's see here. 8 hours stream.
Why is everyone scared of my pushback? Open panel hops.
Yes.
I read that title and he was in there talking, and I was like, "What you want to debate about, bro?" Hey, I'll take some push. Go for it. That's what I'm here for.
There it is in the StreamYard. Put it here.
Yeah.
So right about the hour mark, I see you there.
All right, I got it.
And then this is the same one where Steve jumps in at about...
Steve jumps in later, and I didn't realize Steve was going to roll in, and I went to bed.
4.5 hour mark.
Let's see. Here we go. I'm gonna go feed the dog real quick.
All right. Set
Don't let him
Tyler's
starve.
OEC.
I can see that he was starving.
Who's pimples?
It's dope, right?
Hey, I mean, that was fucking. Where did you get that from?
What?
Is that AI or has that got some?
Well, yeah, the song, it's my lyrics.
Yep.
And then I prompt the AI of what style to do it in, and I do like the verse breaks and solo break, stuff like that. And then it puts the song together for me.
AI is out of control.
Taught you a little bit, haven't I, Easy? Since I've known you, yeah, I've learned a bit from us.
Yeah, man. Thanks.
Hey. Joking. Told him.
Balderson, how you doing?
What's up, brother?
Not much. So you said, I think you said in the chat you're an Odinist.
Yes, sir. I sure am.
So does this mean like you acknowledge the gods with runes and stuff like this?
Yeah, I follow Odin. Yeah.
Okay. And what drove you to do that?
Well, I spent a lot of years studying a lot of different cosmologies, theologies, every operating system I could find. I've been to basically every religious function that I've ever had availability to, and that's been a substantial amount. Everything from I went to Jewish rabbi classes for about 8 months and checked those out, see what they had to say. I went to different Muslim events. I've been to Native American events. And at the end of the day, the old school Germanic ways are just the ones that settle right with me. It's the way to live. My opinion is a substantial amount of Christian culture, at least in the Western world today, is some weird bastardization between the two, where in almost an Alexander the Great style, when Rome tried to subsume Northern Europe, they had to allot a bunch of their customs and beliefs and whatnot into the system. And so this is where you see a lot of the different variants in that system. But at the end of the day, the biggest deal for me, and where I don't have association with Christianity, although I would state Orthodox Christianity and Germanic heathenism, the actual lifestyle it produces are probably closest to the same. It's kind of a weird thing for me at this point. But I would say that the lack of accountability in the basic Christian faith is a big problem for me, and I would honestly say that's led us to where we are today. Like, I don't see how that's not a direct door to liberalism.
So one thing I would ask about, like, so do you ever question the fact that, like, with the pagan religions, right, it's more like a collection of poems that are from different spots put together?
Mm-hmm. And what exactly is the Bible?
Well, the Bible has the Old Testament, the New Testament, right? And then it's
a collection of stories and books
from beginning to end. Yeah, it's actually like the first example of how a structured story.
So well, it's not an entirely structured story, but again, neither is mine. It's a collection of stories that they put together at your Council of Nicaea for yourself. For me, they didn't have that kind of thing. So we have a wider collection of stories. We didn't have an overseeing body that went through and tried to make that collection into one streamlined thing, and thus rejecting a bunch of things. The same arguments that you see from that kind of time period where they took books and they made them non-canon, you see the same things in our stories. Not all of them are poems. A substantial amount of them are poems, and it all depends on which country you're looking at. So like the one that everybody typically talks about, it's the most well-known, is the Poetic Eddas. And so that's where you're most likely getting that thought process from. But at the end of the day, there is a bunch of other stories. The Poetic Eddas was done by a Christian monk, and that's part of why it has its the most notoriety and it's most widely accepted in this system. But it's still just a collection of stories. There's, outside of the Poetic Edda, hundreds of other stories. And when you look at any other religion, they all basically kind of have that feature to it. Because at the time when most of these religions were created, we were a much smaller society. We didn't have like the internet where we could universalize anything. A tribe 100 miles away had a different, slightly different story or whatever, different views of things. So that's to be expected.
I'm talking on mute, and you're probably like, "What the fuck is this guy even saying?"
I've been sitting here just, all right. That's why I started talking again. I was like, I guess I get a little weird about dead air because I had an actual TV show and an actual radio show, and it was 3 seconds, and somebody needs to fucking say something.
You know, and like, yo, don't take this as me like shitting on your belief or like trying to like
go right ahead, bro. I wouldn't be on a
hate on you or anything. Like, there's people in my chat. One of my mods is she's a witch, so you know what I mean. Like, I'm not trying to like. I just like I like to battle these ideas back and forth. But have you ever read this book, The Words of Odin?
I'm gonna a new rendering of the Havamal. I've read the Havamal. I've not read that particular.
Okay, yeah, this is for like
of the Havamal.
Yeah, this is like to like people. I guess to make people understand it a little better. I guess.
So the Havamal is specifically just pieces of what Odin himself says. So it's not any of the rest of the story.
Yeah.
It's only Odin.
Yeah. I was gonna ask you. So, like, do you take this literal? Like, this was literally Odin came and spoke down all these words, and we know this.
Yes.
Okay. And like, is there anything that you link historically to it that makes you believe, like, yes, there was Thor, there was Odin that came down and mingled with the humans?
No, there wouldn't be anything specific archaeologically. If that's the only thing we could actually say is an archaeological finding for an actual evidence like that. No, nothing like that exists. And then on top of that,
like, I know they found like old little runes and like Thor's hammer, the little Thor's hammer they found and stuff. Like, I know there's that stuff, but I'm wondering if there's like, because like with Christianity, right? Like, there is historical evidence to Jesus Christ being here on earth, right? Whatever you believe of Jesus Christ, there's still historical evidence of him. So like, this is one thing I know I can link to my Bible, right?
Like what?
Sorry, what do you mean?
What historical evidence?
Well, all the eyewitnesses. We have the cloth. I forget what it's called now. Maybe Elder Lionel know what I'm talking about. Yes. Thank you. We have the historical evidence of people saying they watched him rise from the dead, right? We have the the Dead Sea Scrolls that have direct evidence to the Old Testament as well. So like there's things that link the Bible archaeologists and
So
historically.
outside of the Shroud of
It's
Turin,
the
just
Bible.
writings.
Yeah, there's a lot of writings. Yeah, because a lot of our historical evidence is this way, right?
So in our book, we
Genghis
also
Khan,
have-
do you believe Genghis Khan was a person?
Probably.
Yeah,
I
I
mean-
believe he was probably maybe a little boasted up, but he was probably someone big and someone not to fuck with. But like all we know about him is people that wrote after he died about him.
Yeah.
They don't even know how he died. It's very mixed stories about how he died, but we know a lot about him, and it's all because of eyewitness. And this is what we can do with history, right? This is kind of like our strongest bet is like how many different writings can equal the same thing. So with the Bible, there's a lot of talk with like how many different versions of the Bible says different things. There's contradictions, blah, blah, blah. But the message throughout the whole thing is the same. God said he was sending the Son. The Son comes, dies for our sins, and through the Son we will be saved. That message stays the same in every single Bible. So that's the one thing it stays consistent. That's the whole point of Christianity, right?
So we have the same features outside of, obviously, we have no Shroud of Turin. We don't have that particular story in our in any of our type of things, but in not in the Poetic Eddas, but in like the Gesta Danorum and things like that. Supposedly people met Odin, interacted with him. There's a very interesting story because the story of Balder is one of the more widely talked about and known, because that is basically what sets off the events of Ragnarok. And in the Gesta Danorum, rather than being a god, Balder, in the Poetic Eddas, Balder himself is a god, but in the Gesta Danorum, he is not, but Odin and Thor are. And Balder gets into a duel over his wife, over his would-be bride with another man. And that's how he's slain, is in that duel. So he ends up losing it. And then Odin and Thor have to interact with they get into a fight with these people. There's a number of stories, same thing, where they have interactions with these same people.
It's more of
if it's basically down to writings
critique.
at that point. The big feature where archaeologically we would not have.
What's that, man? Did you say something, Ben?
I said it's more when you guys want to pause and critique what's going on.
Yeah. I did just get back from feeding the dog, but
Well, this is you laying out. She's asking some questions. Doesn't seem like there's much of a debate or pushback at this point. We want to go like point by point. The Council of Nicaea issue gets brought up a lot, and people argue back and forth to say, did the Council of Nicaea create the canon, or did it affirm that the canon that they already had was going to continue to be the canon? So people kind of nitpick these types of things.
What my point was that the Council of Nicaea took however many books, hundreds of books. They took and separated out for whatever reason, whether it was redundancy, they thought this story was the better one. Whether some stories they took out, like the Book of Enoch, things like that, and just flat removed them. So because they didn't want it, and one would think that with the Book of Enoch, it's probably because it's a little too fantastical. And these kind of things have never happened with the heathen stories. So somebody, whether you want to agree with the work that they did or not, somebody took a whole group of stories and tried to make one coherent, basically, stop it. basically coherent story out of it. And that doesn't happen with the heathen stories. So some of these stories, and I lay this out here in a minute, is like Harbard scholars use that in the tale of Harbard the ferryman is what's called a fleeting. And a fleeting, for anybody that doesn't understand, this, like a battle rap where you're basically talking shit at the other person. And so that's what that, and this was a poem, in a medieval poem.
It's like a diss track.
Yes, it's like a diss track. And so you shouldn't take this and put this into the works as like, oh, believe what this person has said as religiously. It was a fleeting. It was like a diss track. So you would assume that half of what was said was shit talk or more.
So
Yeah.
if this was a debate between Christianity and Odinism, and the moderator has this sort of, I understand Christianity, so I'm going to ask you questions as if I understand Odinism in terms of like Christianity terms. So now we're comparing literature. Well, in Christianity, we are a real religion. We have a real Bible. What does Odinism have? What do you got over there? And you're like, well, there's a Havamal. It's like, well, Havamal is not a one-to-one replacement for the Bible, nor is it trying to be. But from someone who's understanding religion from, the Christian perspective, they're going to say, well, we have a Bible and we can, we have Council of Nicaea, we have a history of the Bible. It's been around for so long, and we have all the documents. But it's not a one-to-one with other world religions. And then there was something else that was brought up about the people that knew Jesus. They talked to Jesus. The what did he call it? The eyewitness reports. So that gets brought up a lot. And now you're countering that with, well, were there eyewitness reports of Odin? This sort of back and forth thing. So it doesn't quite seem like it's a debate at this point. It's just trying to figure out what are we even talking about here. And you're presenting...
Which I presented. There's also writings of eyewitness reports of seeing Odin and interacting with him. So I don't know what you want me to tell you. You got a book, I got a book. We're going so far.
Right. Did you feel at any point that other your moderate speakeasy there, was he trying to say like Christianity is the real religion and this heathenism is like against Christianity?
The only time that I thought that they got somewhat mocking was later on when we start talking about creation, and the creation story from heathens includes Adumbla, the great cow, and Ymir, and the great cow and the milk and things. Well, we didn't when it was my turn to get back into it, I didn't get into some of the fantastical stories that are in the Bible that absolutely can happen, such as Jonah being inside the belly of a whale, which cannot have oxygen in it, or else it would kill the whale. And your stomach is an anaerobic environment, not an aerobic environment. And so there isn't oxygen for a human to breathe inside there. That whole system wouldn't function. It's kind of nonsense. 100 other different fantastical stories. But if you're gonna take and attack mine for having fantastical stories, which also has fantastical stories, and we can both realize that there's probably metaphors built into these things, in order to make a story more entertaining and pass it along. And you should probably be pulling the reasoning out of the metaphor, but that would apply to both, once again, one for one.
I mean, I did hear you kind of seed at the start of your speaking that Orthodox Christianity and Odidism, those lifestyles end up with similar outcomes, and a lot of the lifestyle decisions that both groups are choosing are very, very similar. So there's a lot of overlap.
Yeah, that's very weird for me. But I also laid out that, in my opinion, the base idea behind Christianity is a direct door to liberalism, and it leads us right to where we are now because it takes away all your accountability.
And
That
that's
you
where
yourself
that's
can
where the
never
argument
be a good,
begins.
accountable person.
Right. So now you're arguing that due to Western civilization kind of being founded on biblical Christian ideologies, that eventually somewhere down the road, maybe 2,000 years later, because of the liberalist ideas and like the social justice ideas, that's kind of how that would play out. I can state that there's an idea called this Antioch Declaration or Agreement. Have you heard of this thing, Steve, at all? The Antioch Declaration that some people were talking about in the 1970s, American Christianity.
Yeah, I'm vaguely familiar with it just from kind of growing up with people that were involved in the Church of God and stuff like that. It was at least at the time, 80s, early 90s, stuff like that, it was still kind of looked down upon by most of the church elders. There were a couple of like my youth pastor, my original youth pastor was still old school enough that it wasn't really being incorporated into his approach to any of us or how he communicated. But the dude who followed him was definitely way more of that mindset.
So Antioch, a place that's mentioned in the Bible where the term Christians began to be used. So people who are followers of Christ in this sort of cult religious sect thing, they started to be called Christians in Antioch. Go to like 1970s and you have multiculturalism coming together. Segregation is now desegregated. Blacks, whites, yellows, reds, all the colors are, worshiping the same God in the same church, and this is a good thing, as espoused by this Antioch document that people were sharing around. Now, when I was in a Christian college in 2005, 6, 7, there was housing on the campus that was called Antioch Housing, which is to say it was the multicultural housing. And a funny story about that is there were so many white people attending this private Christian college that they needed more housing for the white people. So I knew some friends that I met in the dining hall who were, fair skinned, who were housed in Antioch Housing, but because they were not diversity students, they didn't have to participate in the Antioch activities. So the Antioch activities were special field trips that the diverse Antioch residents of the apartment complex would participate in. But because my friends who became my roommates the next year after they moved out of Antioch Housing, is this making kind of some sense where you try to force white people to participate in neoliberalism, multicultural melting pot, and what is the result after so many years? I don't know if it's been a win for Christianity in America. This idea of Antioch and social justice now leading to social justice warriors, leading to ideas of reparations and Black Lives Matter, and all of the sort of
people being too chicken to debate that kind of thing.
Yeah,
I'm talking about you, Nico House.
No.
Well, it gets to be the white woman who operates the coffee shop in the foyer of the church, who doesn't want to have difficult conversations about what is the ethnic background of our tithers and who gives beyond the 10%, and who's funding, who's paying off the church's mortgages, what color is their skin, and does that matter to us? The real financial questions, the real
You're
demographic
critiquing
questions.
something, Marcus. Focus.
Yes. So Christianity, if left to its own devices over a long period of time, leading to neoliberalism and the melting pot, the mixing, which would be race baiting and race mixing in America today, that is now so controversial. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but it certainly has led us in this direction that we are now finding ourselves in 2024, where everything at a dollar store costs $1.25.
I was getting dragged for Gish galloping.
Dude,
All right.
Marcus is the around the mulberry bush king, dude. Go ahead and throw it on 1.5. I don't think we're talking fast enough that's a problem. Or
That's
1.25.
So that's the point Balderson makes early on in this debate on the Speakeasy channel. He lays it in. He says, that's going to be the problem with Christianity.
That's my positive, claim is that Christianity is a direct road to where we are now.
Which is not a great situation, and Christians are responsible for it.
All right,
Christians, how do
okay.
they do
So
that?
are you going to make the delineation between, Protestant and Orthodox and blah 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 blah? Because it does seem like
everybody that believes that you're incapable of saving yourself and becoming a good person that's worthy and thinks your only path of that is through the blood of Jesus Christ. Yes, I think that that's a direct path to. It's a complete unaccountability for yourself, because in no way were you ever able to account for yourself. The only accounting was this other person, which in my mind is no different than liberal thought processes today, where they have zero accountability for whatever they're doing. How is it different?
yeah. In this particular era, I don't think it is. I think you could point to 7,500 years ago where there were people who were adhering a little bit more to some of the more social strictures contained within.
So those were social structures.
Well, that's where it kind of starts, man. If the social fabric,
I also made the contention, and you missed this, Steve, that Protestantism and many of the things that we see outside of Orthodoxy are a subsuming of Northern European lifestyle, because when they tried to subsume Northern Europe, they had to then, it's similar to the way Alexander the Great allowed people to continue celebrating their holidays, their things. They had to incorporate that into the Christianity, which is where where there's this argument of, well, Christ wasn't born on Christmas, blah, blah, blah. That's a pagan holiday, blah, blah, blah. Well, yeah, I agree. That is our holiday. That's our Yule. And you guys moved the Christians subsumed that and pushed them together, so that way the celebration of Yule could continue. And they just started, grabbing bits and pieces out of it. The Orthodox is the one that does that the least, but I would say that the better parts that you're talking about, that the societal parts, are all Protestant in America. And that was a subsuming of Germanic society. That wasn't a Christian society. That's the better parts you are thinking of in Christian society were taken direct from German.
Yeah, I'm not trying to defend one or the other. I'm not like that.
No, I knew you weren't.
Yeah,
I'm making, because we're critiquing me, and so I'm making my case and where I was coming from, and which is why I did lay out that Orthodox was different than the other ones. But I said, oddly enough, it seems to produce more the lifestyle of the people following it most closely matches Odinism. So I don't understand that part. It's interesting to me, but it's not something that I can deny either.
Do you want me to go back to this? Do you want me to jump forward?
No, we
a little
went
bit?
through it. We went through it. I don't want to go
Okay.
through it again. I think I've been doing pretty good so far, anyways.
Heck yeah.
And in arguing Christianity, asking the questions of, well, is it Orthodox Christianity, Protestant, Catholic, getting into the nitty gritty and the weeds there, that's kind of where they get back with the Antioch Declaration, where there's this idea that we need Christian unity and we need it now. So if you're not with us, you're against us. And then the strongest element of the church just continues to be the church, and then everyone else is just fringe groups from the church.
Yeah, which is what they say. But yeah, go ahead and speed it up a little bit. I think until the other guys get in there, when it's just me and Easy, and the other guys aren't jumping in, it stays at a slow enough pace we can easily speed it up.
Okay. Let's see. There's a guy, then there's a new guy.
They stay quiet for quite a while of it, though.
Okay. There's multiple people. We're about 2 hours in now.
Yeah, it starts getting some heat on it there.
Okay. Let's see what we got.
The High Almighty, right? So any of you confused human beings that need to ask any questions, I'm the representative.
So why would you
Yeah,
guys
I'll do it.
follow a Jesus that definitely got killed by Romans?
So, wait. Can you wait?
hold on.
Shh, James, 2 seconds. Can you slow down when you speak to me, please? Just slow that down a second. Me immortal.
Not
What did you say?
a problem. Not a problem.
A little bit slower, please. Just a little bit.
Technically, he didn't get killed by the Romans.
I'm only of Scottish descent. I
Killed by
can't
the
put
Romans.
that many marbles in my mouth. You're not quite Welsh, but so I mean, I understand. I'm speaking too plain to English. I'll slow it down for you, brother. It's cool.
But
It just sounds a bit to me like your testicles are in your stomach.
I guess you're kind of saying that
I packed them away after my 7th kid. I quit eating them.
I guess you're saying Balderson, that what do you call that again in Norse mythology? It's kind of like the
Balderdash.
Trinity, I guess.
Repeat that, please, James. I couldn't quite catch
What do you
you.
call that in the Norse mythology, where everything is like one and everything?
The all?
The all. So it's kind. I guess it's kind of like the how the Trinity kind of works, where we all become one with God through the Holy Trinity, like in the Bible, because we all become one.
Yeah, and then and ours also goes into the threes. So this is why the all is actually Gununga Gap, Muspelheim, and Niflheim. So this is your Trinity. Then you turn around, and this is where you go in, and the Adumbla and Ymir create the giants and gods. The giants and the gods then take Odin, Billy, and Ve take and create mankind, which Odin gives him his high mind, Vili gives him his walking power, and Ve gives him his name or ego. So this is
Who created humans? I'm sorry.
Odin did.
Okay.
Can I ask a quick question? If the all is the creator of even Odin himself, why wouldn't you worship the all?
Because
I
I
was
can't
gonna ask that
understand the all. It's too
That's
far
what
away.
you were gonna ask, Deathfire?
I was going to ask that. I have another question, but that was one of the
my
questions.
bad, bro.
No, you're good. What you gotta ask?
Great minds think alike.
It's too unfathomable.
So you're thick as fuck.
I mean, that kind of makes sense because
you
the Father is
understand,
so inaccessible from the Christian's point of view. That's why Jesus was necessary.
Yeah, that's why Jesus is there.
But
interceding, yeah.
we still worship the Father. You know,
Yeah,
so
through
why
Jesus.
wouldn't you worship the all?
Oh, I do revere the all. I'm part of it. That's this entire awesome ass place. It's just I can't really identify it with it that much. It's
But
this
wouldn't you
giant
identify with
mission.
it through Odin?
Yes, so I identify it through Odin, who went through a certain path that made him into the All Father, which is the closest thing that we can understand to the process that the All finds sacred, because he's encoded it in nature over and
Like
over.
Jesus.
And over.
Like Jesus.
Yeah,
Well, Jesus
we-
wasn't
we- we-
created.
But we still worship the Father, even though
Yeah.
we know Jesus is part of.
but it's
God, the
through,
like that's where you
through
get
a
the
thing that
Trinity.
you can understand.
But you're worshiping a creature in order to understand the uncreated. Because the all is uncreated, correct?
Yeah, the all is the all.
So why would you worship and follow a creation in order to try to understand the uncreated?
Because that's the closest thing that I can get to understanding it. I can't
Have you tried
understand.
walking a bit? Have you tried taking a few more steps forward to try and find the person that created that? No. Have you tried walking a bit further, or you just thought, nah, I'm going to stop here because I'm too fucking lazy?
Some days.
Hmm.
Usually only when I've had too much Irish whiskey, but any other time I'm good.
Huh. I mean, I guess the other question was, when you say that the all is everything, but what distinguishes the all from everything? Is there anything that is the all that isn't in everything?
Everything is the all.
But the all is everything. And what I'm saying is there is no distinction between the all, the creator, and the creation. It's one in the same.
Well, again, the understanding that while I might be a piece of the all, it's the same understanding that a transmission's a piece of the car. It's all a car, but the transmission's still the transmission. The engine's still the engine. There's still pieces of it. I'm a piece of the all. I'm part of the all, but I'm not the all. I have no understanding. Just the same as my individual cells don't represent the entirety of me, but I am all my cells.
Yeah.
Can you just
But you wouldn't say that the car creates the transmission.
No,
So I mean, that's where the analogy would.
right,
it
but I
falls
can't
apart.
make an exact analogy for God, dude. For the all, for the thing that's everything. There's no exact analogy. Every analogy would have to be inside that. You understand that, right?
Well, I'm more so looking for the distinction between the all and everything, because
There
to me it
is-
sounds like it's one in the same, and if it's one in the same, stuff comes from stuff is the argument, and that just doesn't. Infinite regress with that. So I don't understand how. I don't know how you square the circle with the all being everything. If there's nothing that is the all, that is not a part of everything, that is separate from everything to be the thing that is uncreated, because if it's creation, then
everything
the all
else
is created.
But you're trying to make a separation, a material separation between your being and what I would consider the all and your God. So you're making a material separation. There isn't a material separation. The all didn't go, oh, boom, here's this other thing. This is all part of it.
Yeah, I'm not. That's not. It's not making very much sense.
How can you be one with God, your God, if
You talking about in the afterlife? Or
I'm talking
present?
about period. Are you not one with God? Is God not always with you and
Well,
in you and all that stuff? Maybe I'm wrong. Correct
It
me,
could-
because just like with what Easy was doing, I'm not an expert on your thing, so if I'm wrong,
Yeah.
feel free to correct me.
You're not an expert. You're not an expert. Wait, You're also not an expert. You're also not an expert on your thing, by the way. You're also not an expert.
No, he
on
seems
your
pretty. He seems pretty knowledgeable from what I've heard.
Nah,
I mean,
not what I've been told. I've been told a lot different.
Did I
I'll
come
leave
in
that one
claiming
another
to
day.
be an expert, or did I come in claiming?
No. Hang on. We'll let the experts talk to you. I'm just observing. That's what I'm
But
doing.
Sounds like you're mostly drinking, but keep on.
but we're one in Christian theology. We're one with God through Jesus. And everything. Jesus is in our heart, and then we become one with the Father, which technically they're all God, I guess you could say, in the sense of they're Elohim, which is kind of complicated Trinity because there's three parts to it. I'm not qualified to speak on the Trinity. I got the judgment towards the Father.
oh, it's theological heavy stuff.
It's heavy. Yeah. It's one of those holy mysteries that I can't really
So
We pause it here.
for us, the Father, because we do have the Trinity, the Father, Son, the Holy Spirit. The Father is not within this dimension, if you want to call it. He is not within the universe, within creation. The Father is not within creation. He is outside of creation. The only bridge that we have to the Father is the Son. So we believe that the Father
can we
condescended
pause?
himself into human form to be the messenger, to bring the
Do
gospel,
what?
to
Can we
be the
pause?
revelation between
All right.
man and
And before you guys critique, I do want to say that this part was actually a part I wasn't happy with. My metaphor didn't land, and I already realized that in the next time I go about this, my metaphor will be that all is like white light. All light is white light, but red isn't white. Blue isn't white, but white is red, blue. All light descends from white, but they aren't white themselves. So I think that's a more accurate and more easy to understand, maybe. I don't know. Let me know.
It gets a little frustrating listening to this as your point is not being made clear. They're becoming more antagonistic towards you as they feel like this is the chink in your armor that they can keep poking at. So they're going to keep playing this game where they're not going to move past their intentional misunderstanding of the creator and creation.
Well, they're coming at it from their perspective, where their creator, there's
You've
a
offended
creator
them.
and a created. But this is the trap that they're setting for themselves later.
But you've
when
offended them because in their cosmology, God is around everything, including the all, the creator, the creation, Odin, Germany, America, and everything. So now you're saying that their God, their creator God, is underneath that in a henotheistic way, saying their God is on the same level as Zeus and Ahura Mazda and all the other lowercase g gods, and they're taking umbrage with that. They're getting very upset with that. And Marble Mouth over there is saying, hold on. He's making jokes about experts.
I start making fun of him and pretending like he's Irish, even though I know he's English, which is
Welsh,
hilarious.
English, Irish, whatever.
Yeah.
It's all under the same
UK.
part of creation. They all worship the same king or queen of
But
England.
they all think that the Irish are beneath them, so I start calling him a drunk Irishman just to piss him off. It's
Sure.
great.
So there's the hierarchy then. There's a pecking order that they're trying to play with here.
Yes. But I don't let him get under my skin. I'm happy about that.
Right, and they bring up the. Did they ask directly? Do Odinists worship Odin?
I believe they do at some point in time, and I point out that it's not the same as the Christian style of worship. I believe that they do, though. It gets more interesting. It gets more. Farney's really a smart guy. It gets interesting when Farney shows up too. Steve and Farney have had it, I think, out a little bit.
A little bit. No, it's difficult when you're explaining a concept that makes more or less sense to you, that because it's something that you've already viewed as infinite with significant elements beyond human understanding in the first place. Like, it's difficult to get that across.
Yeah, when they start going on about how tough the Trinity is, and I'm like, oh shit. Like, I think the Trinity's, I give entire lectures about it, and it's not the Christian Trinity, but it's the same concept, and they don't understand that. That's why the All Mother is the thing, the Holy Ghost, the thing you can't see or touch, and then there's sulfur, and then there's salt, and they don't understand. But then, in order to understand that, then they're going to have to backtrack and look at their own paradigm and go, oh shit, we're seeing things really fucked up, and we're basically picking the sulfur side and saying that that's everything. Like, it's super weird.
Yeah, it gets difficult when there's a group of 4 other guys who have their religious opinions that they are now bounded together to defend their religious opinion against your religious opinion. And it's a little frustrating to me because you put in that jab to say, like, defend Christianity for its responsibility of this sort of leftism and neoliberalism and all the things that they are complaining about every week in the speakeasy and every Friday night, all the issues they're debating and complaining about. They failed to acknowledge that it could be their responsibility due to their religious affiliation that has caused it all along.
Yeah.
So to get them to admit that is a huge
But don't worry, I'm letting them set their own trap right here. This whole where they make a real big case about an externalized God. I nail them with it. So, and they still are talking about that shit. Like, almost every ortho bro I've watched for since this debate has brought that up.
Where's that bit at? Or do we want to pick up where we were?
You can pick up where we were, but speed up the thing. So you know what I mean? Make it like 1.5 or 1.25 or whatever.
Okay.
So we're not sitting here forever.
I'm not going to make it 1.5. That'll chipmunk you guys.
Yeah, I don't need to be a chipmunk.
Where'd you go? Playback speed.
So this is the origin of Stepfire, who was with us last Tuesday.
Stepfire
the unreachable Father. Jesus says nobody knows the Father except through me. So that is how we have our Creator apart from creation. I don't understand how your creation isn't also the Creator. So it's a contradiction from my understanding.
Yeah, that's what it sounds
like.
It's
not a contradiction. It's just different.
Your creator is your creation is a creator.
Like, it was so. Where exactly did your God get his material?
He made it. He made it from his.
I mean, he's the all-powerful.
Magic up some material. So hold on. Your God just magics. There's this being that is the only thing in it that is there's nothing else right at the beginning of this story, right?
Have you ever heard of hydrogen?
There's only him.
Right. So there's just only this guy.
Like the different elements, he spoke the elements into existence, and he made everything from the different elements. That's the way I understand it. Because I believe science and God can go together. I don't think science and God have to be separate and everything. When it comes to the Big Bang, I should say. Let me rephrase that. When it comes to the Big Bang, that's not biblical. To make that clear. As far as like the elements and things like that, the things that we can know for sure that exist, it's not separable. Because we don't know for sure if the Big Bang happened, which I don't think it happened. I believe creation, but yeah. I digress.
Yeah, I would claim that science cannot touch God or measure God. Again,
Time,
God is out.
Space, and matter didn't exist before God.
Yeah, but
he's outside of this, right?
But But didn't God create time, space, and matter though?
That's what I just said.
Well, yeah. But I'm saying science. I'm not saying science touches God though. I'm not saying it's on the same level as God. I'm just saying science doesn't contradict God because God created science. The real.
I wasn't
science.
saying anything against what you said, James. I was just simply saying that I was explaining to Balder that because he was saying what was before God. That's
I
it.
wasn't saying what was before. I was saying it started out just God, right? In your story. That's all there
Yeah.
is, right?
Yes, the Trinity.
And then, right.
The Father, the Son, the Holy
big
Spirit.
difference
That was
we're
all that
having-
was there in the beginning.
So the big difference that we're having is you guys are understanding things that your God magic up something separate from itself, but then also in the story, you're all part of God and it's all in you. So I'm not sure. I'm having
No, we were made in
understanding
God's
it.
image. Here, I'll give you. We're not in God like that. It's not like we were made in God's image, right?
I mean, we're
With
Can
love,
I try and dumb this
spiritually in God
down?
though.
our morals
dumb
are written
this-
on our hearts, right?
We're like spiritually one with God though.
Can I try and
Not
dumb this down
physically.
just for me? Just for me. I mean, I am going to sound stupid, yeah. Okay, but just for me.
Just
So-
another Monday.
If you picture this like God sat on his lonesome and he's building an elastic band board, okay? Right? It's very small to start with. And then it gets to the size where he goes, whack, bounces it off the floor, okay? It hits the ceiling, hits the wall, it starts to have a reaction. It creates stuff. I mean, is that not the Big Bang? Was God not just bored and had something to do one day and then it happened? Could be as simple as that, couldn't it? I mean, I tell you, I'd sound stupid saying it. I fucking knew I'd sound stupid saying it, but I've said it. It's out there. Okay. Oh. But I never said I was intelligent. I just say stuff that I want to hear the answer to.
The Big
Um,
Bang is
As long as
just
you're
the
saying it with an Irish accent. It's all right. You got fucking Thomas Sheridan over there.
He said
Hang on for a
Irish, Ricky.
That's it, right, that's it. I swear down. I tell you, he's done that 3 times now. That's his 3rd time. I'm going to grab you by that fucking beard, right, and smash your face into the nearest curb, right, and stamp on the back of your neck. I'll show you what a fucking Brit does.
God damn,
I'm
that's
gonna
the 80s style. You guys need to get ahead. That's like some 80s stuff to giving Kirby's. Come on.
It
get
works, don't
ready.
it?
Oh, what you doing now? What you fucking hip folk doing now? What's the in thing now? What you doing?
Oh shit! Come
What
on
are
now.
you doing No, come on. You're 3 generations ahead of us. What you doing now? What's happening
Well, at
now?
least if you're gonna go old school, at least give it the South Texas Death.
Right. Well,
Ride.
what you doing? What you doing now? No, what's happening now? Come on.
I don't know.
Now we mostly just tape them to the trees and let the tweakers have at it.
You say perverted. That's perverted. You see, that's why he doesn't believe in God. That's why God hasn't accepted him, because he still has them tendencies. He's tying people to trees and playing with their nipples. Right.
I don't have to do it. You just got to leave them there for the tweakers.
Oh, you say so? He's watching other
I
people
said
do it.
I leave them there for the tweakers.
Yeah,
You know,
right,
you
so
don't want to deal with those people.
right, we're getting to the nook and cranny of this. We're getting to the nitty gritty of you now.
I
Okay.
know what kind of nooks and crannies you've been in.
We know what kind of old grannies you're trying to get in as well.
Crannies you've been digging around in. You damn flamer.
Hey, Balderson, can I ask you a question?
Mhm.
I know a lot of guys who believe the same thing you do. Mostly like biker guys. They're really into this. Would you say that like moral consequences have anything to do with your afterlife?
Oh, 100%.
Like moral concerns?
100%.
In what context?
That's
Right, 'cause
that's entirely what chooses where we're going to go. Is how you live
Well, you-
your life.
You believe in like Norse tradition, right? Like
Yeah,
Nordic
well,
stuff?
more Germanic, but yeah, same basic concept. Yeah.
Right. So like the idea is like when you die, you're gonna go to Inharjar, is that right? And you're gonna take Elders Hall, which is Valhalla, and you're gonna wait there
No.
for Ragnarok, right? No?
No, I'm not.
Oh, it's different.
That's only for like the shock troops. Like the Ragnar or Valhalla is specifically only for guys that just love fighting. That's what they live for. They want to spend the rest of their lives training to go into the biggest, baddest fight ever. And that's not me, bro. I'm more of a farmer. I'll fight if I have to, but I'm a farmer.
Like the military people. That's who that's Valhalla's for, right? The military kind of people.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's guys
fighter.
that
You fight in combat.
I mean, I was in the army for 6 years, and I'll go do my part, but I'm not, it's not like I said, I got a cousin that I'm damn near 50 and he, I think, is 52 and he still gets into
You look
fights
great.
regularly.
You look
Loves
great
it.
for your age.
I tell you what, like, I'll be honest with you, for 50 years old, my friend, for 50 years old,
You touch
you-
out as
you
many
let-
grandkids as you can, keep you young.
listen to that. Did he say he had a wife or not? Or is he taking? Can I move in on this fucker? What am I able to most of them?
You don't need it to be. You know what? No. You know what? Someone wants to tell you something.
top of years at my lifetime. I just tell it for true, I don't even know if you go without the beginning.
He said no.
Malaysia.
And for the nose, through the nose.
Yo, Jay,
Yo,
you
I'm
guys
liking how StreamYard has added in how I don't know if you've noticed the setup here where I can make some of them squares, some of them
That is
circles.
wild, dude.
I've been fucking around with it. That's like I'm liking it.
I tell you what, though, bro, for the new price that they're giving, they better have some cool options. The new prices on StreamYard when I started and StreamYard, well, when I was doing it, when StreamYard first started, it was $20.
Yeah, I pay almost, dude, for the package I have, I pay almost $500 a month for it. So
Right, easy. I've just done some math there. Right, for the money you're paying, that is not a square because I've just taken my tape measure out and I've just went 3, 4, 5, and that is not a right angle. Yeah. That is off. Right, okay. It's more of an oblong, but let's just we'll move past that. We can't move past that because of all men. There's tolerances. There is. So StreamYard need to get them back together.
come up here,
Okay.
Farney. Sorry, Brick. I just want Farney to come up so that we can set up this debate. But yeah,
Sorry, I'm already verbally fucking slandering StreamYard in a strongly worded email as we speak. Okay, so
Poor StreamYard, Ricky. Poor StreamYard.
you're gonna have to have a
Poor
translator.
StreamYard, not for you.
They will have to get a translator to dissect a lot of this language.
When Farney
You know.
joins.
Yeah, and by the way, again, I want to mention, right, just so like you and anyone else in the chat knows, like, again, I don't do these things in a way to like make you feel like you're not welcome here or anything like that. It's like I'm actually come to like when people challenge my beliefs and why I believe it and things about my beliefs because it's actually solidified them for me, right? Like it's helped solidify it, right? Because I can break apart their answers every time, and it's like, oh well, yeah. So like I like to pose these questions to other people's beliefs too, right?
I agree.
What up,
That's
Farney?
what I like about it also. If you don't have it's where you're missing introspection, other people are going to add that introspection for you. Then you get to then you got to go and stop and think and work your way through it, and that's the only way you grow as a person.
Facts.
Hey, Fanny. Hey, Fanny.
Hey, Bonnie.
Yeah, so I don't know if you read a bit about that, but you know how like last debate I had with him, it went like really long where like one side was talking forever and a day. So I suggested to Muzz like, hey man, if you do want to do it, like let's do like kind of a ping pong style match. So like one person asks a question for 1 minute, the other person answers for 1 minute, then the other person gets to ask a question for 1 minute and the other person answers. I think that's the only way we'll avoid the nonsense that happened last time because that guy spoke for like 50 minutes of the last debate, and it was not only brutal for having a healthy discussion for the debate, but I think the audience suffered for that as well. I do think like I won the debate, not that I need to say that, but I'd like to actually have some more meat done with that too. Also, Ricky, man, you got me with that Boulder Dash thing, man. That Boulder Dash thing was so funny. I was laughing my ass off.
Did you pick up on that? You picked up on that. Fucking
bro,
seen
my brother and I used to love playing. Did you ever play that game Boulder Dash where you BS the answer and all that?
Look, a lot of people mistake my humor for intelligence.
So good, man. It was so good. I didn't even think of making that joke. It was on.
Oh, because you don't know intelligence, right, Ricky?
That was pretty high
So
IQ.
before I
Jason.
reach out to Muzz, what is before I ask Muzz, what's gonna be like good times of the day for you and which days?
I'm fairly flexible so long as there's enough time in advance. Like last time, it was
Okay.
like 3 days in advance, which was a little brutal. You know what I mean? But
Yeah,
I'm
skip ahead a little bit.
Weeks out from
Oh,
now.
whoa, wait there. 3 days. I got 30 minutes notice when my last child was ready to drop. Right?
Oh yeah.
You can pause it for a
And I still
moment.
missed it. I was still missing it.
So they're talking about the fees of StreamYard. We are using StreamYard tonight as well. Saying he was spending $500 a month to manage the show. That's a huge expense. What's a Kirby?
So anybody that wants to donate to Steve is paying for our StreamYard, and it is extraordinarily expensive anyways. And back in the day, Kirby was this was really a skinhead thing when I was young, that they were known for it where I was around anyways. They would make you open up your mouth and put it over the curb, and then they would stomp on the back of your head.
Oh, curb stomping. Okay. Yeah. So then the other gentleman, I want to say was that Sports Brand maybe, who was saying, "Oh, I know about this. I know a lot of biker guys who are into this Norse thing." Were you able to clarify the similarities and differences between the Norse and Germanic and biker gangs and farmers?
Take many hours to clarify, but I got the idea across where not everybody goes to Valhalla and not everybody wants to. That's specifically only for shock troops. Yeah, Billing, it's the American History X stomp. Yeah. But that was only for specifically shock troops for the end battle. That was not for everybody. In fact, Odin didn't even get first choice. Freya got first choice. So the people that are going to rebuild and make a life, they're pretty damn important.
Did you feel like that was kind of a way to accuse you as having bad character to associate you with skinheads, white nationalists, people that have a little swastika ink on them or something to that effect?
No, I feel like it was, they were just trying to find a point to try and go from, because then he also, Easy had hit me on that earlier, and he was thinking that it was unfair for people to, only some people to go to Valhalla, and some people don't, even if they were just fine people. And I was, I clarified, that's only for shock troops. That's not for everybody. Myself personally, I have no desire to go to Valhalla. It doesn't sound great for me. Some people like fighting that much, where they want to fight all day, every day, and feast and fight and feast and fight. And it sounds great to them. It sounds kind of horrible to me.
Right.
Yeah, it sounds like a pain in the ass.
Yeah.
Well, that's where they were asking about the afterlife and sort of the idea that your moral decisions and your behavior in this life, how does it influence you in the afterlife? And
well, if I was a shock troop type of person that just wanted to fight and feast, then that would be the place for me, and that's where I would go. They'd be like, dude, you're real good at this. This is where we should take you. This is where you should go. That's not really my thing. They're like, oh, yeah, you showed up and you did your part. You did what you're supposed to, but then you were like, as soon as you could, you were like, yeah, I'm done. Like, you probably belong with the farmers. You seem to like that. And I would go, yes, that's true. I would much rather hang out with the farmers and farm.
So then I don't know if they were touching on the idea of like sin and redemption leading into heaven or hell.
Well, there's that exists also. There's spots for people that are real shitheads too. That's again, they didn't get that far, and I'm not going to just give it to them. They've got to earn some stuff, and believe me, here just shortly, I'm about to hit them back with the story that they laid out for me. I clarify it, and then I smash it.
Okay, let's get back into it.
And like they say that it's not in the Old Testament and stuff, and like I've like heard people's typology arguments for where Jesus is in the Old Testament and stuff. Like Mike Winger's good at those and all that, right? But even the other day when I was listening to Giorgiani mention some nonsense about like, oh, the pillar of fire and cloud in pardon me, in Exodus, it was a UFO. And it wasn't actually Moses that
Probably
waved his wand
15
around and
minutes.
spread the Red Sea. It was the pillar of fire using its gravitational beam and shot it down into the. I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? So for one thing, nowhere does it ever say that the pillar. Like, well, if he's so powerful, how come he can't create a rock that he can't lift, right? And it's because these omnis have to conform with other things that are in reality, right? You can't separate them from the other like things that God is, right? So omniscience. How can he be all-knowing, right? Where it doesn't like remove like free will and all this and that. So there's the fact that he knows all, and there's the fact that free will exists, and how they like work together.
I have,
That's
the
the
best,
only-
I have the best way to explain that for you. I've explained this one a bunch of times. I think I can help you.
Sure. I'll just finish what I was saying. It's
Yeah, go ahead.
Talking about the same
is that the Eastern Orthodox Church describes this as a divine mystery. And I think what that is kind of pointing at, and I like to say it in this way, if we lived in a 2D universe, but we were trying to describe the concept of a cube, we know a cube exists, right? But we can only represent it in our 2D universe by drawing multiple lines to represent the idea of a cube. But we can't actually interact with it directly, nor have we ever been able to show somebody directly or experience in the fullness of what a cube kind of is, but we can grasp at certain aspects of the cube. And that's similar to these ideas that are difficult for us to understand, such as God being living outside of time kind of thing, being timeless, is that with the fact of being timeless and all-knowing is the idea that unless we are these things, there's only so much of it that we can grasp. And I think that's the kind of quote-unquote mystery concept coming into play there. So yeah, go ahead, man. Yeah, Steph, you wanted to say something first, though?
Oh, I was just going to say that's the only thing that about Calvinism that I thought was legitimate, was trying to reconcile the God's all-knowing with man's free will.
I can give it to you right now. So easy. It's actually very easy to understand. Ready? Okay. I even drew you a little picture for you. Okay? So see here. Right? See this picture right here, okay? It's got a little path, right? And then there's three choices here. Right? There's three different paths it leads into, okay? Here, let me make it bigger for you. Hold up.
What's that bottom one? Sadness?
Oh yeah, it is. Yeah, love, death, sadness.
Okay. So whatever choice you pick, this moment in time here is a choice. Okay.
Yeah. Fork in the road.
Your choice is going to come to one of these things: love, death, or sadness. God knows whatever of those choices and what each of those choices lead to. He just lets you pick it.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if that was because I explained that as well with Terry, because we're trying to work through this on our stream that we do every Thursday, and I'm not sure if it is that the paths are already laid out, like God knows exactly what you're going to make out, or if God is aware of what would happen regardless of what path you choose. I'm not too sure which is like the official understanding.
I lean towards the second one.
The second one.
I'm super curious how you rectify that you're not part of God. He created this separate thing. That's you, the story you explained. So there it's a separate thing, but then he also apparently has a limitation on how much of something he could create, because that would be the philosophical question. If he can create magic matter that's separate from himself, that when nothing existed, but prior to that, what stops him from making matter that he couldn't eventually lift up? This the very premise, because now it's very conflicting. Because if he can make things separate from himself, what is the safeguard that stops that? And if that safeguard exists, how is that still then omnipotence?
It sounds like you're mixing two ideas there.
Yeah, I got a little.
I got it. I got.
How am I mixing two ideas up?
If I got what you're saying, Balderson. If I can, I'm not going to use a theological explanation because I don't know if we're on the same page there, but I can totally use a scientific explanation, right? So the idea of multiplicity, right? So let's say you have two dice in your hand, right? There's 12 different what is it? 12 times 12 different outcomes, right? So you have the dice in your hand. God knows this, and He knows all different outcomes. And the way you throw those dice and they come out, that's already predetermined to a certain extent. The idea is how you throw them. So there's a multiplicity of options that you have, and they all coalesce into one specific outcome in the long term, right? So we're thinking about time in the wrong way, really. So we're thinking that time is some sort of linear thing. That's not how it works to us. That's how it works to us. It's not how it works to God.
For God, it's not like a Netflix movie that you can just rewind or you just fast forward. It is all happening at the same time.
Right. And all possible outcomes are possible at the same time.
So He sees everything all at the same time.
Yeah, like God is here today, and He was here today, yesterday too, and He was here today 2 days ago. Like it's all the time. God is.
Right. As finite beings, we don't have infinite possibilities. We have finite possibilities. We just can't comprehend them.
But I don't think that's really. Answering Balderson's
that he was just talking about. The Farney here was when he was explaining his viewpoint. He is not part of God. that he is a separate thing. He's just on Team God. Is that correct, Farney?
More or less, yeah, man. Yeah, yeah.
I mean, not trying to be dickish about it.
No. It sounds like another way of putting what I said. Yeah.
I'm just trying to make it quick. You know, you took a long
You're trying
time.
to steal man. Yeah.
I'm trying to simplify it. So, but you are a separate being, and so is everything else here that God created separate from itself. Correct?
Correct.
So omnipotence includes being able to do anything. You're all powerful. So if you can create matter outside of yourself, because that's what you're saying, then what would be the limiter that would stop him from making matter that was beyond that limit? And if that limiter is there that says he cannot do that, then how's that still omnipotent?
What's the limiter you're talking about?
I'm not sure what you mean.
I think the limiter that he's getting at, that he's
Like
asking
contradictions?
for, is the idea of logic. It has to be logical, right? Because he is the kind of source of these rules in existence, right? Like things like logic stems from the mind of God, kind of thing, right?
Well, I guess it's more of an orthodoxy theology where God has to go along the lines of logic.
Well, it's not that God. No. That's a mistake. God doesn't have to go along the lines of logic. God
That's what I believe.
created logic, right?
Well, we created logic. God gave us the ability. It's the same thing as
No,
saying
we didn't. We
invented electricity.
discovered logic. We didn't create it.
Yeah, right. We didn't. We discovered it.
Which means it was already in existence.
But there's many
before
things in existence
It's like
without
discovering
understanding.
water.
Before man, the law of identity was
No
still upheld.
one's credited with discovering water.
Well,
Right, like
Benjamin Franklin's discovered
wait,
credited with
wait,
discovering electricity.
Wait,
right?
though, like
Water
things
just-
like logic, like something like math. Do you think math was invented or discovered?
I mean,
discovered.
water
Math is,
already.
if we're ever going to
Right.
communicate,
The
we're
limit
gonna
of
have
math,
to-
no, we haven't
it's going to
figured
go
it out
through
yet,
mathematics to communicate
The
with
first man discovered water.
They existed before
Yeah,
man,
they-
right?
The first man discovered water.
Yeah, because Adam didn't know about water until he found it, because God showed it to him, so he discovered it.
All right, I mean that makes kind of sense. But yeah, I mean
You know, but
Absolutely.
it's not like he's gonna get
he
rewarded
was more
for
so.
it.
I mean, he was more so
it's
showing
there.
it.
It's
I
something
guess.
you
I guess.
see a little bit more
I guess.
noticeable than math.
Effigy, that would, yeah, obviously, and obviously we believe that God created the universe, right?
Yeah, obviously, God did
Would
create. the
God
universe.
create quantum physics?
God created everything in existence.
Yeah, but I think like just
our
because
understanding-
quantum physics doesn't appear to be logical, like because I think that's what a lot of people's arguments are. I think that just shows our lack of understanding of what's going on with quantum
Yeah,
physics.
that's because we're finite beings. It's not that
I mean,
it doesn't make sense; it's that we can't comprehend it.
I would like to
Can't
put a
comprehend
qualifier yet on that. It
Go
doesn't
for it.
mean that we won't ever be able to understand it,
Uh,
but I
well,
would say like there's certain aspects of God that we may never be able to like understand, right? Like
Even this paper towel was made by God, even though it was made by man, because God made man. Ultimately, it goes back to God. Everything
Right,
is
Daniel,
God.
James, put that paper towel down. We do not want to know what's happened to that paper towel. Okay?
Look, I like my mouth. Thank you. Because I have to.
No paper towels were abused during this live stream.
Thank you.
If anyone needs to know,
So-
okay.
So Boulderson, did that kind of get at like your question, right? Because I'm not too
Well, he
sure
was
if we're even
he was
like,
asking about
answering.
creation.
I'm not sure how it went sideways, because you mentioned the Socratic question where it's like that's what you were talking about, where it said if God is omnipotent, is able to make anything, why can't he make a boulder that he can't lift?
Mhm.
And then you went on again to then explain that you're separate from God in your understanding. So God did definitely make matter, makes things, an entire universe separate from himself. I mean, I assume that the entirety of the universe is then also separate from God. It's not just us, right?
Yeah, there's no like sparks of God, pieces of God, and yeah.
So then you understand that in order for him to be omnipotent, he can either make that or he can't.
Well, yeah,
So
but can
it's
he make a
literally
married
something
bachelor? It's
separate
just
from himself. Where is that? What is the limiter saying? I can no longer. I've not made so much stuff that I've exceeded this.
contradiction.
That's
Well,
contradiction.
God can't make like a married bachelor. These things, the words that are being used, they have meanings. Now, I guess he could establish the universe in such a way that these words don't mean what we mean by them, and therefore you can make the statement. But when it comes to the logic and coherency, these things are, we believe that God is both logical and coherent, maybe outside of our understanding, but we do believe that, he operates off of he operates a certain way, and not contradicting himself would be one of those ways. I just don't-
I have maybe a decent analogy. It's obviously not going to be perfect, but imagine there's a game where when you reach a value of 300, that is the most powerful you can be in the game, right? So are you going to be able to reach 301? No, because I'd be going outside the rules of the game kind of thing, right? I think that's a decent way of putting it, where
So
there's
where is the limiter in this though? What's creating the limiter? And then wouldn't that limiter then be more powerful than your God?
no, I would
Because
say
nature of
God
God-
is.
God is
The nature of God is the limiter.
Yes, exactly. The very nature of God is.
So
the limiter.
how is God then separate from its nature? Then then
God
something
is not
else is
separate
still
from
a
nature.
limiter.
Separate from
God's
his
not
nature.
omnipotent. God's all powerful up to said limiter.
In the sense of controlling nature. Now, God is separate in the sense of physicality of nature. If you're talking about nature, you're
No,
talking
so
nature
I
in
think you're making a confusion here.
trees,
So
right?
because just because God doesn't do certain things that's out of his nature doesn't mean he can't. Right?
It just he
can.
wouldn't.
So
Like
then
it's,
that still brings up the
it's out of
question.
my nature to walk down the street and kick a child that I see,
So-
right?
so then why
It's out of my
wouldn't he be
nature. I
able to
wouldn't do that.
build a
Doesn't mean I
boulder?
can't do that. It just
So
means
you're
I
saying
wouldn't.
that he could build a boulder,
no
he can't
limiter.
lift, but he won't? Is that what you're
I
saying?
think you gave the perfect
Sorry, say that
analogy
again,
when you
Father?
gave.
Is what you're saying then he could build a boulder he can't lift, but he won't?
He could make a boulder that he couldn't lift.
But he won't?
Probably.
Is that what you're saying with that?
He
See,
probably
I
could.
don't think he could, man.
Yeah, it's a
I-
contradiction. The
yeah.
riddle is,
That's
can, is if God is all powerful, can he create a boulder that even he couldn't move?
What I mean?
So
Yeah,
can he
that's
make
a-
can he
it's a
make a
classic
married
one, right?
bachelor?
Well, this
Yeah,
is a confusing. This
Yeah,
is a confusing
yeah,
language.
exactly. Yeah, that
This is just
doesn't
a
make
con-
sense.
This is a confusement in language
Like,
according to
for
which
me, because
person you're.
we're all
what-
part of the all.
How
This
how
isn't a
could he
problem.
create it? How could he create it if he couldn't lift it? How could he create it in the first place if he
Again,
couldn't lift it?
This is a human concept of what you're putting onto
How
God,
could he? How
right?
could he
The same
create
thing
it
with
if he couldn't lift
Stepfire's.
it? He created it.
Right. We as humans cannot put limiters through our own finite language on God, right? The idea of Stepfire is saying, could there be a married bachelor? Linguistically, that doesn't make any sense. But in practicality, it makes perfect sense. There's many men who are married that go out and pretend not to be married.
Yeah,
And
but that
then have
doesn't
the married
they either
bachelor.
are
Yeah, so-
married or they are a bachelor.
The more I think about this, guys, wait one
Linguistic.
second. The more I think about this, that's not a contradiction. Saying that he wouldn't be saying he would be able to make a stone that even he wouldn't be able to lift.
If God chose
Because
not to lift it,
the fact is that God literally has no limit to his power, right? So like that would entail that he literally could do this.
Could he make a gallstone that he couldn't
So
pay?
then at that point that he did it, now he can't lift the boulder.
this goes back to the
That's-
idea
Yeah,
of
but
why did God
that's
make
part of his
people?
power, though. Is what Easy
Well, I
saying.
mean-
He made the boulder,
But he
so
didn't do
therefore
this.
he did.
He
Am I
did
right
it.
in saying this is a circular argument?
Power.
Different
So
discussion.
I came across this riddle when I was in middle school.
I can make a house I can't lift. Does that make it mean anything? Like,
You're not
I've
God.
made loads
No,
of
but you're
houses
not
I
all
can't lift.
powerful, bro.
Omnipotent.
Yeah.
I've made
If
but
you're
I
loads
not-
of
can
houses
still
I
lift
can't
all
lift.
those
But
pieces of the
I
house.
But,
Like here we say we
Power.
can't put limiters on God. I came across this riddle in middle school, and the best way that I was able to answer it before I got into any theology, before I ever got serious about any of this, was yes, he could create a boulder that he couldn't move, and then he could move it.
Right.
Nailed it.
So he just goes to Super Saiyan level 3. Like,
Yeah,
that's-
if you're going to bring in the entire thing is a contradiction.
You're actually
If
right.
we're-
You got them trying to scratch their heads and figure this out.
Yeah, the best answer that they've come up with now is that Christian logic is different than normal logic.
Well, Benjamin, it's logic plus Jesus.
Yeah, the Jesus logic's not like normal logics. That's not a cope at all. Go
I gotta dip out.
ahead and take
like
that
a couple
down
of
so
minutes.
everybody can see us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you got them arguing the logic. There was some talk of Socratic logic and coherence, like God is logical and coherent, and God being the limiter of the thing. But then they're also talking about how God is outside of third, second, and first dimensions. So if he were to make a boulder that he could not lift, he'd have to incarnate into the 3D realm and then give himself. He'd already have the strength, I guess. So it gets into all sorts of leaping and logical to try to figure out what this could mean. But Christian logic is different from your logic, is what they decided on.
Overall, how'd you guys think I did? And where can I improve? I know the one metaphor I think needed tweaked, needed changed.
Yeah,
again,
I think what it's gonna amount to is over time you're gonna figure out how to communicate specifically to different religious groups, like what the parallels are, what the differences are, where the origin points were, and where they overlap. But that's gonna come from seeing, what arguments they're going to be putting forth, not necessarily anything I could really point to
Yeah.
from that.
there's a whole field of apologetics. Instead, you go to a private Christian college and you're going to take apologetics classes, which are going to teach you to defend the faith, to defend what the Bible says, all these types of things. And you're not wanting to take those classes to think how Christians think. And again, at some point, it's like they were arguing amongst themselves, well, what do we believe together? And it's like they were struggling to unite. But again, it's like my flavor of Christianity has to be similar to your flavor of Christianity, because we have to defend the faith against our guest who is not of the Christian faith.
That's also why I clarified that all of them held the position that their God was separate from us, from the creation, that there was a creator and a created, and the two things are not the same at all.
So then my question is, are the logical thoughts that I'm thinking in my head right now about a debate having any bearing on if I'm standing in a puddle of my own urine because I wasn't thinking about my body and what I'm doing at this moment? It's like it would be foolish for me to forget that I'm limited in this world, but then I can think, imagine thoughts, and then argue thoughts. But until they hit the pavement, like the skinhead who, curb stomps the other skinhead at a bar somewhere, and who wants to go to Valhalla first? It's like the real thrust of the conversation was leading towards what has been the result of Christian culture in America, and they showed how it's a lot of insular logic, which then leads to voting for candidates, for talking about when does life begin, and it's sort of this emotionalism defending a set of beliefs. And then because we're dizzy in that, Elon Musk comes along and says, I'm the e-god Dogecoin hustler giving you WeChat. And then they're upset about that because they are so focused on getting their apologetics and their Christian argument right, because they're focused on the afterlife and heaven and all these other things. It's like, well, we have Thanksgiving coming up and we've got to pay bills this month, and StreamYard is costing easy $500 a month, and Steve's paying for this StreamYard, and we're a value for value show, and everyone's got to figure out how to make a living and earn some cash and then spend it wisely at a dollar store where everything's $1.25 because of shrinkflation.
Well, thank you, Billing and Christy, for your feedback on that, and we love you guys.
Shout out to Rockfin. It's been real fun.
We're keep your eyes open. I have contacted Modern Day Debates. We're gonna start debating them. Steve's gonna contact them this week. Start getting our names out there. I feel like I did okay. Obviously, there's things that need worked on and replaced, and some things that need tweaking. But we got to get in there and bang. Obviously, that group, we invited Statfire. He was one of the smarter ones, and then Farney and Wally. But out of that group that I've noticed, but also notice it took me a minute to get them to understand the difference between omnipotence and omniscience, and that where my point was going at all. Took quite a bit. Most of the arguments were not against my point in any way, shape, or form. So we got to practice, but it's hard to get in with the better debaters unless you are already a known debater, and so on and so forth. So it's a struggle into the position to where we can start wanting other good debaters want to debate us. We'll figure out something with the StreamYard situation so we can do announcements and whatnot. Steve is being kind enough. He's got enough stuff going on that he's got a StreamYard set up, and that's what we're using. But of course, because of that, it's not like everybody can access it and whatnot. So, and a lot of the times these debates are last minute, and maybe Steve's not anywhere near us. So,
sure, if it's a practical answer to say, well, we can set up an X account or a Twitter account or a Blue Sky or Threads or a Twitter or an Instagram or Telegram or something.
Something like that. We're figuring it out, guys, as we're getting the debates figured out, how to be debaters also. Because having a giant amount of knowledge doesn't necessarily make you a debater. Two things aren't necessarily the same thing. And so we've got to figure out how to transition that. And I think it's going to be real good for us, because then once people can get the smaller parts, which is what you're going to have to do debating, then they're going to come and check out the more thoroughly sussed out and fleshed out information. So
YouTube does have a community tab where we can post updates. So look there, I guess. If you're subscribed to the YouTube, we have a lot of people on Rockfin who are staying
we'll
up
start
YouTube.
putting it on the YouTube. Good thinking, Billy. Yeah, as soon as I decide to go into debates, I'll message Marcus and tell him, hey, I'm gonna be over here. If you guys want to check it out. And Steve's gonna do the same thing. He's been crimped busy. I've been crimped busy. That one was a couple weeks ago. But we thought that again, after last week, and after which last week we had a debate, this one was the week before, so I just thought it'd be nice to kind of review them, and so that way Steve and I could improve. And Marcus hasn't really done an outside debate yet, but he will, and we will. We'll get there.
Heck yeah. Well, no, fellas, I gotta jump.
Happy Thanksgiving to those who celebrate.
Heck yeah. And it's an amateur drunk holiday. It's a rookie holiday. So be safe on the road. If you can help it, don't go out at night. Because that's when all the clowns are out.
There's more night than day, though, these days.
Love you guys.
Dark out there.
All right. Take care, everybody. Good night.